Hello and welcome to the Call of Duty Vista. Our incredible guest today is the one and only Microphone Maestro Pablo.
Hey, how's it going, boys? Microphone Maestro is nice. I'm going to keep that.
Yeah, there you go.
Especially if you compare it to the actual Maestro. If I've got that kind of talent, we're good to go.
Good point.
I love that. I love that. And obviously, Pablo, you're from Liverpool, right? Are you
Yeah,
red or blue?
red. Yeah, definitely red. Although
Important question.
it's a vital one, and it's the one that crops up all the time. But I'll be honest with you, over time, I've got less and less bothered about the footy. I'm still in the Call of Duty betting syndicate. I mean, there's like it's so ingrained into this ecosystem that there's so many places you can go in the Call of Duty scene to get the best bets. I'm still in there. But I used to have a season ticket for the game a long time ago, but it just got way too expensive. I was sharing the season ticket as well, and for so long I was Patrick McCarthy. So basically, they used to have a lottery in Ireland where they would throw out a load of season tickets, and then whoever didn't pick them up, they went out, they come back to Liverpool, and people could pick them up. And usually it was based around someone who passed away didn't pick the season ticket up. So I was whatever 105-year-old Patrick McCarthy, and me and my mate split the season ticket up, but it was still costing us like 700 quid each a season, and that was like 2006. So
Gee,
I was like,
Wow.
just got to knock it on the head. Got to be able to eat. And you think about it, if you just go to the match, like even if you got the season ticket, you're still looking at like the drinks in town before you
yeah.
get on the bus to the ground, drinks at the ground. Then you're in the game, and then drinks after the game. So even if you've got your season ticket, it's still like a £200 day. So yeah, that had to go. My wife was like, something's got to give.
Yeah.
So yeah, it gave way, and then I was like, well, I've got to replace. It was like Indiana Jones. So I was like, at the start, they've got like you've got older the football season ticket you've got, and I just went Call of Duty.
Yeah. I
And I
love.
thought it was going to be so much cheaper, but for the first few years, it was just like how it goes. It was
Yeah.
just like you just you just basically take a bath in this scene. It's insane.
You're in a blender with your bank account. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Heffy's feeling it right now.
Oh, honestly, I feel for this guy considering we've got what 2 weeks until the event, and like,
Mate, he phoned me. I think we'd done a production call just to make sure everything was in place and that anyone's questions who hadn't been involved in the build up to it were answered. I think we did all right. We got every question answered. We seemed to have every angle covered. And then he phones me back afterwards. He goes, "I'm not very well." You know, I was like, "Mate, you've got to stop stressing. You've got to stop stressing. A lot of smart people are working with you. We'll make it work." And he's like, "Yeah, all right, please, just let's just get it done."
yeah, I feel for him.
I'm waiting for you guys when you guys do your LAN. I'm just going to be like, yeah, Jax, why have you gone grey all of a
Yeah,
sudden?
trust me. I'm not sure I'll be able to cope. To be honest, I feel for Heffy. I mean, we've spoken quite a lot over the last few weeks, and you can tell like as it's getting closer to the event, he's like a little bit more cautious about everything.
Yeah, I mean, you've the thing is, I think, which is something I've never really heard anyone else do, is the effort he's put into making sure things don't go wrong, is unbelievable. Now, largely that's on the back of the experience of the Sheffield land.
Yeah,
That basically on the back of that, like that was a lesson in how everything could potentially go wrong, and just a lack of. I mean, even then, we thought there was a lot of prep that had gone into that, but this is next level. Like Heffy's, his day job is very process and attention to detail orientated. So he's just basically put all his effort into this, and some of the stuff has just been dead smart. Getting there early, you guys have been down there, I think, haven't you as well? Getting there early and doing the test runs and making sure all the licenses work and making sure everyone can log on, having it so that anyone logging onto main stage can log in their own account, so that we don't have any issues beyond that. So it's only going to be dead normal. Making sure the spaces are correct, making sure the area for us is correct for broadcast, and making sure the wired lobby are happy so that they feel like they can make some money out of it as well. So it's like everything that you could hope for is in place. And yeah, we just got to roll with the punches when it comes to the date.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, there's always going to be issues that prop up that you just can't have like can't plan for.
Yeah.
And Cop, you've been to the venue, right? Like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's hard, right? Like you said, like you can put all the work you want into it before it, but then just something random will happen. It will throw the entire day off. So it's like, I think everyone's nervous for it. But yeah, in fairness to Heffy, like he's done a lot. What more can you do? And like after talking to the owner of the venue, right, like they went through the process of getting 64 different lines, so everyone's got their own separate IP. Like just they've done everything they possibly can to make it work. Like the venue seems really good, so it's definitely positive vibes, but it's just
We have
it's
an Activision contract
cautious.
as well.
Yes, yeah. So then that's the thing. Apparently, the venue as well has its own license. So when people want to host events there, like they haven't got to go through the painstaking process. Like the venue's already done it, so it's good to have a venue in the UK that's
Yeah,
wanting to host COD events. I mean, that's probably
yeah,
one of the main things because we've all been to an event where they don't even want gamers in the building, right? But whereas like these want as many through the door as possible.
yeah.
Like security is on the door as well to like try and keep everything as smooth as possible. Like it's really positive there. It's really, really good. So fingers crossed it's good and we have 3 or 4 there this year.
Yeah, I think he's just. I mean, the venue itself looks great. It's got some really. There's a couple of things I think gamers out that are going to. I know it's obviously Call of Duty focused, but there's going to be some other stuff there that people are going to be able to do, which is going to just make it a even more rounded experience. I've organised a couple of sponsors to come, so there's going to be some stuff you can buy if you want. If you come and you need some gear, and they're going to have stations set up as well, so you can test stuff out, and it's all going to be um, priced like Katana priced, so it's not going to be like the regular online price for these. They're going to have like specials and stuff for people who might want to pick up headsets or streaming gear and things like that. And beyond that, there's just it's going to be super exciting, and it's just it's the lessons learned from Sheffield, but beyond that, it's that attention to detail from Heffy. It's properly exciting, a really exciting opportunity. And the thing is, if it goes smoothly, he's going to look at doing 2 more. So that's just this year. That's just with the limited scope that he's got, and now he's got to come away from that and have a look at the financials of it and see, what the script is. There's some things that we haven't been able to take advantage of in the run up to this that you would be able to take advantage of in the next LAN. So if this goes well, there's things to do with data and the way that we can reach out to gamers in the area, reach out to gamers within our community and do different things as well. Because as much as like one of the things that's always baffled me about EU Call of Duty is it's it's very reticent to talk about money, and like it's an expensive thing to do what we do in any way, even from a caster's perspective. Like the first thing when someone messages me and says, have you got any tips about getting better at casting, I just say the same thing. You're going to need to buy some gear. You need to get a good microphone for a start, or you guys are going to sound like a cock. And you need to make sure that you've got a decent setup, because you need 2 screens. There's no way you can do this on one screen. Like you need your game on one screen, and you need all your stats and all the information. My left hand screen is like 60 tabs deep when we're playing. It wasn't last night because it was a bit rushed last night, and plus I've been on the whiskies for a little bit as well. But it's normally 60 tabs deep of stats and information and stuff that we can pull on to talk about players, because me and Chafing aren't Infinity. Infinity is like a Bible. He really does know everything about every player over the last 5 or 6 years and beyond. So we have to have a ton of information. So and then you go to you guys who are running an org, and you know what it's like in terms of the kind of outlay. You basically just take a hit on a lot, especially running a team. And then it's the same running a LAN is going to cost Heffy. This is going to, he's not going to break even. The idea is to minimize the hit on his pocket as much as possible, so that when it comes to the next LAN, he can at least break even or make money, because he's not setting out for this to be a business to make money. He just wants to provide something for the community. But at the end of the day, you don't want to make a loss, because it just becomes impossible. Like you can't justify then doing another LAN. So at some point we have to act like the North Americans. They're very open about their costs and their financials. They're very open. There's no weirdness around it. And I think that's the way we've got to kind of get our headspace to be, and go, look, we're not doing it because it's going to cost us a fucking mint. So unless you guys can find a way to work with us and lower your costs or whatever, then it's going to be an issue. But yeah, we need to be more honest to think about our financials when it comes to this business, because it is. It's just it's expensive.
I mean, like, we wouldn't have been in Call of Duty this year if we didn't love the game, right? Because like
Yeah.
the amount of money it costs,
Yeah.
and like you compare it to something like Apex that we were in last year. All right, it probably costs the same amount of money, but the benefit is if you get to the like the finals on LAN like we did, you know you've got 500,000 people watching online.
Yeah.
Whereas challenges, because we don't have the biggest platform, right? Because the
Yeah.
CDL don't seem to give a shit.
You
Like,
don't give a shit.
it's just a money bit. You're just burning money. But I'm hopeful. Like, I think there's so much more that as people and as orgs we can do, and that's why we're trying to do things like this podcast, like doing the
Yeah.
watch parties as much as possible, and like when the community are putting on streams like you guys did yesterday as well.
Yeah.
It's only going to help grow the scene, and that's what we need.
Yeah, I think for me the problem is it's always gonna be at this level. I think that it's difficult to expand it. I think it's weird. It's right that the players are the focus because they are the reason that we watch this. We love everyone wants to be. Wouldn't we all love to be able to play the game like Bance or Beans or anyone like that would be amazing. And Copy's saying that, and he's crimson by the way. And I'm literally just got to silver. So yeah, there's a gulf of difference. I would love to be able to play the game like Copy. It's just
Jesus, not
because
many people say that.
yeah, that well, enough people have played with me to know how bad I am at this game. I'm all right at watching it from a top-down level and get it, but as soon as I get down to that ground level, I just become an absolute lemon. So it's not great, but yeah, obviously, rightfully, it is the focus is on the players, but as a ecosystem, challenges in the CDL are obviously in a terrible place at the minute. But the problem is, I don't see a way out for them. I think Activision are too greedy. I think they're always going to be greedy with the license, and that's always going to be a problem. We're not going back to console. That was a one-way decision going to PC, so we're never going back to console. Um, and that's largely down to the fact that the commitment to console is a commitment to producing discs again in large quantities because people won't always want to download them, and if they've got a console they particularly won't want to download them. So that's not going to happen. We're stuck with PC forever. So an anti-cheat that works would be great, or even being able to upload kill cams to face it would be a start. So there's so many, Copy, that's it, there's so many issues at hand. I mean, we could end up being us anyway. This what we did yesterday, that could be the future of Call of Duty at the minute, which is laughable when you think about how many sales the game gets compared to other games.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's truly bonkers. Like, what the hell? It makes so much money, and it's just it. I mean, the culture there was never great anyway at Activision in America. They've had a couple of court cases because the culture's so bad, and they, the other problem is the people making the decisions aren't Call of Duty players or fans in their early to mid-20s. They're people my age who don't give a shit really about the game, and they have to make financial and business decisions that will keep them in a job so their boss doesn't bollock them as well. And it's the sad fact of it, really, isn't it?
It is, but at the same time, like you can run like the CDL at a loss, right? Because it's still a great marketing for your game. If you make the most out of like a CDL or a CWO and let other parties take a bit of control where they can make money off it, like it's just an all-round benefit to the scene. I just don't understand how they
Widening
don't
your
see it.
sponsorship base would be a massive start. So it's not just the US Air Force insurance or whatever the hell it is, and the one, I don't know, specialist game goggles manufacturer or whatever the mad sponsors they've got. Open the sponsorship up would be a start. Lowering the cost of entry for the license would be a start. Opening it back up to orgs would be like orgs like Noctem, like Omid, like Team War. More so the pro-am vibe, but across the season. So giving grassroots organisations the opportunity to grow as opposed to individual players, which is basically what it is. It's because they turned it into a franchise. They've tried to replicate the NBA, but not realising that without the grassroots, without the ability to feed without ability to be able to feed the top level with organizations, so they can consistently feed players into that. But without being able to feed organizations, the grassroots will die away, because you're literally doing the community a favor by running an org at a loss. Like, there's no other business in the world that would do this. There's not. It's insane, and you're not the only ones. You know, the Defiance, Notorious guys, the same. A Wobber, the same. Every org is running this challenges at a loss. And when you guys put tweets out, or we put tweets out saying, "Nice one, amazing work by everyone. Thank you for doing the community." I'm not sure the community quite realised that there's like 6 or 7 orgs at challenges level that are paying for their entertainment. You know what I mean? They are literally taking it out your bank account to do it, and we do love doing it. Like, there's no doubt. The end result for us is that we're able to give a platform to players that really do deserve it. You know, me and Major constantly, like, our bias towards Felix. We want to see Felix in the CDL at some point. We've been put, ever since we cast over Eric Boom and Mavericks, we have done nothing but say, get Eric Boom in the CDL. I think everyone got a taste of how good he can be in that first hard point last night as well. I think he went off given the opportunity. I think he can do really good things. Same for Cobra. I think same for Brezzy. And I've always felt Brezzy's got the quality to be a world champion at this game. He's so good. He's so smart. He just needs that opportunity to get into the right team. It's exactly the position Kismet was in. We were casting over Kismet at challenges level for so long, and we'd go into the clutch chat afterwards, and it'd just be like, why is he playing the challenges? Like, why is he playing the challenges? But the other problem is, we have this conversation so many times about so many players, like, and again, it comes down to the fact that the CDL is an ivory tower that's way too small and needs to be widened considerably in order to really reflect the level of quality across so many players.
Yeah, and we need some more space in Europe, right? Like,
Yeah.
we've got no affiliation now to any of the teams except for like Ultra, because they've got European players on there, and like
The Heretics, but they're
Yeah.
largely for at least this season and next season, they're probably largely going to pick from the Spanish pool of players, and that might extend maybe to Latin players in America at some point, but largely they're going to want to stick to their kind of Latin roots. So yeah, makes it very difficult for the English boys, for the UK, sorry, the UK people, because obviously we've got loads of great Scottish and Irish players, and Davey's gone now, so no Welsh players. Sorry, boys.
Poor Dave. There's always time for a comeback, right?
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And just quickly, I wanted to touch on Odee quickly. I know you're working with him now, right? And
Yeah.
So I was at an event like 2 weeks ago with Odee, and he was like, "Oh, do you know this guy?" And I was like, "Oh." And he was like, "You should do, right? He's from Call of Duty, Liverpool." And I was like, "Oh, Pablo." And he was like, "Yeah," because he'd obviously said your real name, but I only know you as Pablo.
We work together, so yeah, it's not PabloCasts in our team's chat. He's got the actual picture of me and my actual name. But yeah, he's actually got some good internet now as well. He was on 30 meg like for the last God knows how many years, and he's just had fiber installed this week, so we might actually get a good some video out of him as well. But yeah, he's so weird. He's a legend. Obviously, he built up Team Dignitas, and he basically turned them from nothing into something amazing. And we know him as the GM of the London Royal Ravens and all the problems that comes with that. And it's interesting because I've had conversations with players that haven't been overly kind to him, and I've had conversations with him which hasn't been overly kind to players. But I think they all got fucked by the CDL in a massive way. It's so some of the things I learned this season I wasn't aware of was like the fact that every event has to be paid for by the organization themselves. So it's not the CDL. CDL charge you for the joy of being in the league, 5 million a season, and then they take some revenue from your merch sales. So you don't even get the margins on that, just get destroyed. And then they make you pay for your events as well. So you have to fork out what the copper box was £1 million. So everyone wondering why there wasn't a second London event, it's because it cost upwards of £1 million in order to host it. And that's while you're trying to pay players X amount of wages and having to give them at least 50% of all the sales from any wins that they get in majors. So it's this basically the CDL have done to what the way you guys have to run challenges to a loss. They've just created a loss making machine for any teams that don't get their marketing 100% nailed on out the box. And how many teams can you count that have done that? Toronto Ultra, amazing work.
Yeah.
Everyone loves their merch. Their content is top tier. They've largely stuck to a very similar core of players. They've obviously changed a few out, but they've kind of rotated a very similar core of players. LA Thieves outside of Call of Duty have got their merch correct, but then I would still say if they didn't have that whole ecosystem that they've got and it was just Call of Duty, I don't think they would be nearly as successful as they are.
No.
NYSL have only just started getting their shit together after in the run up to their champs win. And that's largely on the back of getting a really good designer in. I can't remember his name, but he's an amazing designer and sorting all their merch side out. But a lot of teams are just running to a loss because it's so expensive to do all that. And again, this is why the CDL needs to go into the bin and needs to have a rethink.
Yeah, completely agree.
Can't argue it. Can't argue it.
I just wish it was a different kettle. I wish it was more positive. Like the positives to take. What are the positives if we're going to go down a route? In challenges, we get to regularly cast over CDL talent. Like what more can you ask for? Like you guys get to pick up players that have played in the CDL and that have got incredible game knowledge, and I'm sure every now and then you'll pick the brains. You get to do content as well. I've got an absolutely legendary idea for content. I'm going to speak to the majors if we'll do it together. But if we don't end up doing it, I might message you with it's an amazing idea.
Please,
yeah.
Right. Because we never get the time to do anything, and we have good ideas. But the problem is that for both me and Chafing works away for a start. So Monday through Thursday, he just can't do anything. He literally, so elites are out the question for us, even though they're probably not going to get covered. We couldn't cover them anyway. And I work, as much as I work Monday to Friday, I spend a lot of my evenings working as a blog writer in music and games. So my evenings are usually gone. Weekends are for the best time for me. But yeah, I might have a discussion with you after this. I've got a boss idea for content. It's so stupid as well, but it is genius. But yeah, the positive to take from it, we do get an opportunity to see some of the best players now all the time. Like that Team War side, as much as I think they've got the problems in terms of having to not really having a one focused voice and one focused brain dealing with stuff, you still get to see, Ben Deans and Bants just together, just destroying kids on a map. And we get to hear their comms. They're quite open. They all stream as well, which is great. So they've come out of that quite difficult system in CDL where you're so limited in what you can do and what content you can do. It's nice to be able to see them go absolutely off on streams and stuff and have fun. And I'm sure they'd rather be in the CDL, but it's great for us to be able to see that. And I see, there's the problem is I don't even watch the CDL. Only reason I watched it this weekend is because Eric Boom was playing, and I wanted to see how Gwyn did, because we, as much as like I like to rip the NA challenger teams, like they're my next go-to. There's no CDL for me. I'm all challengers, so I'll start with the EU, and then if the EU are knocked out, I'll go to the NA guys and support them.
It's a very tough space, ain't it? Like, I love the European lads. I love the NA boys. But so a little bit of intel here. We were going to do, we got accepted into the Major 1 official watch party from the CDL. I'm like, oh, this would be cool. And honestly, the communication over there is fucking dreadful. We had a contact a day before we were meant to do the first watch party. They're like, oh, we're not doing an official announcement now. You can still do the watch party. And this is on the Saturday. So we'd already missed a day of games. I'm like, no, Joe, what? We'll leave it. We'll do it later on. And then I'm still waiting for an official response to say, oh, you can actually do it now. Because they just said that weekend you're allowed to, and then we'll get back to you.
That's
never
mad.
did. And then they were like, oh, we want, after the first major, they're like, oh, you need to send over your watch party stats. And I'm like, we don't have them because I'm still waiting for you to get back to me.
Yeah.
And then they didn't respond to that either. I'm like,
That sounds like Activision, like massively.
It's
Like, I so it, in my work, we speak to Activision like twice every 2 weeks, nearly every two. There's been a bit of a hiatus because we last conversation we had kind of sorted a few things out, and I think we might next time we catch up probably be Insomnia. But like, having spoke to them, you kind of understand why there's so many issues with communication. Like, and it's not their like it's not the grassroots Activision people. It's not their fault. They just basically don't have the facility or the staff to support this scene. So in the UK, they've got one person that does social media, and and that covers the whole region, by the way, the whole of EU, just and that's social media for all of Call of Duty, not competitive Call of Duty, for all of Call of Duty.
mental.
That's insane, right? That's for one of the biggest regions in the world and probably the second largest buying region. In America, I can only assume that it's marginally better. And if you've experienced that you've had talking to them, it probably backs that up that it's only probably marginally better. And the reason that you probably haven't had the response is because they've probably organised had the idea of allowing people to do official watch parties and then completely underestimating the amount of people that will want to do that officially. And I think again it comes down to the fact that they underestimate the appetite for competitive Call of Duty, like completely at both levels, at both, you know, CDL and Challenger. And obviously the Challenger thing is largely unofficial. Like, it doesn't matter if there's an account set up called Call of Duty Challengers that's ran by Activision or by it's largely unofficial. Like, I don't think they see past the CDL because that's where the money's for the licenses has been paid. So they probably don't see beyond that ecosystem at all anyway. So it's so many battles, and this is the problem you get when you get into a podcast. It can be so negative. Like, this is something that yesterday wasn't negative. Yesterday was great. We got to cast over all our teams. We got to have 3 streams running for the community through Omit, through, you know, for the Clutch Boys and for yourselves, Noctem, which is, you know, something that didn't happen last year. It relied entirely on Clutch doing it, and to a certain extent, I'll be honest with you. Obviously, I love the work that Alan did with Clutch, but because of the way he is, it was very attention to detail focused. It became very business like, and I think he wanted it so that if he wasn't able to go onto the CDL, he would have a platform like eSports Engine or whatever, or eFuse, that he could then go on. Whereas last night was the way I think it personally should go. It should be community driven. I don't think, as much as me and Chafin love the idea of being the challengers casters, I love the idea that the teams that are part of it can go out and do their own streams as
yeah,
well, and support their own teams and generate their own viewership as well. You know, you look at the view counts. We all had kind of very similar view counts. Samir's though was fucking off the charts. They had the French boys are so good at supporting their team, and the guy who runs Clutch have got them a really nice setup with the whole kind of couch vibe, and it's a really good studio environment. And that's what I think is amazing when you've got like all of us pulling together to do that. It just and the other thing is, it means that we can actually respond to people in chat that we know. You know, so
Yeah.
when you see, you know, Ant comes into chat and says something, or Vodrich comes into chat and says something, or whoever, you know, comes in, we can actually respond to them at a level because we know, you know, we've either cast over them or played with them or whatever. And I think you don't get that with any of the other more official broadcasts.
yeah, agreed. And I think as a viewer as well, right? You want to be able to get involved and feel like you're
Yeah.
part of it. That's only going to benefit all of us in the long run as
Yeah,
well.
100%. Yeah, I mean, what's the if you've been in a 4-man stack play and rank play for like the last 2 days, and then you go and watch the person that you've been playing with in a broadcast and they don't respond to you, it's a bit
Yeah.
it's a bit naughty, that, isn't it? Really, do you know what I mean? There might be a delay because the games have got a 90-second delay on them, but there's no way I'm going to blank someone because I'm casting. If I can see the Twitch thing, I'll try and bring them into the broadcast in some way. You know, so and so said something. It's a great point. Let's talk about it in between games. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's the idea. This is what it's not. It's not terrestrial TV. You know, you're not cut off from the world. It's fan funded, fan based TV. Do you know what I mean? And if someone's saying something prescient in chat, then that needs to be brought in. And there's not enough of that. I know obviously it's impossible for the CDL. They've got 90,000 people watching them, but it's not impossible for us. And I think that's a nice place for it to be.
Agreed. I mean, I'm still definitely getting used to like trying to read a chat and push some buttons.
Yeah.
Copy's a lot better than me.
It's
It's
incredible
amazing.
to watch, and
Mate,
the trolls as well, right? I'm sure you get a Pablo, right?
Yeah,
like
loads,
Jack's
yeah.
new to it, so it's hard for him to like look past the comment. Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure you get the same, right? But
Yeah,
it's difficult.
I'd bring it in. At the end of the day, accept it, mate. You've put yourself out there. People are going to be negative as well. So just embrace the whole thing. It's, you know, don't stress about it. I think I try. I used to, so back in the day before me and Chafing were actually a duo, we used to run our separate casts, and we what you act as observer, you know how it is, where you're trying to cast and observe at the same time. And then Chafin kind of took over when we became a duo, doing the observing as well as casting. And I tried it like 18 months ago over a oh my days, it was so bad. I like went into free cam by accident, and it was just like on the floor, and it was just bouncing along, and then it was just in someone's arse, and I was like, guys, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to get the cam back. So yeah, hats off to anyone. Last night we were fortunate enough to have Jacko do the observing for us, and Jacko's a legendary observer. He tells the story of the game really well. He reads the game really well. So, and that's the other thing that where I was shocking at observing was because not a great Call of Duty player. Didn't always. I'd go to what looked like the most interesting thing, and sometimes, you know, a 15-second flank in your mind, it looks like an interesting thing, but on fucking camera, it's pretty boring, to be perfectly honest. You're just watching someone parkour through a map. So yeah, it's you learn it's better sometimes to describe that particular thing and then watch the gunfights. But yeah, it's to keep me away from the keyboard. I've got an Elgato Stream Deck here, and it just doesn't use it. In fact, I think it's just got the Elgato sign. I ended up hotkeying to my keyboard. I'm such a Luddite at times as well.
Do you
But
see,
yeah, it's
we're trying to level up, right? I've got my stream deck from way back when, and I finally set it up yesterday, but it weren't working very well. Was it, Cop? I mean, you know how much.
No, no, I mean it's difficult. There's so much that goes into it that people don't appreciate. And then like another one, Pablo, as well, like you must struggle with is like the mini map, because obviously like I've been doing like the community cups and stuff, and like everything's on display, right? So a lot of time I was used to like looking at the mini map and explaining that, but then I haven't computed in my head yet. Like the people in these streams, the mini map's blocked. Like it's pointless me talking about it. So is that something you factor in? Like do you try and not look at that?
no. So for a while we hadn't. I don't know why we hadn't worked out that when you run Minimap Blocker to the stream, we used to parsec the stream to each other, or Major would parsec it to me. So we had Minimap Blocker as well, and then we
Right.
realised that we could just parsec the actual game to ourselves and not and then so we could see the map. No, I think it's better to paint a picture of the actual what's going on in the map, because as much as like you might focus on an intense one-on-one gunfight, so say you take the terminal S&D where you're going to be like, you've got long and you've got people peeking and it's super exciting, you still need to be able to tell the tale of anyone pushing back plane or someone coming through security or whatever. You still need to be able to tell that tale, and build the image for them as much as possible. It pisses me off massively, and for a long time I did argue with Chafin that the minimap blocker should say who asked for minimap blocker on it. So we were just like calling them out, because like their argument is that it's about trial and strategies, and they don't want anyone to be able to see their strats, which is whatever. I think it's potentially fair enough, but like there aren't that many strategies that you can employ on the rip for S&D on any given map. There's not a great deal that's wild that you can do that isn't just going to get you killed. So there tends to be 4 or 5 kind of fundamental pushes that people do, and to block it is just insane for the start. I can get that it's a weird place to be. I just don't think it makes any sense. You're trying to push to get into the CDL and everything's on display, and you've got to be good enough to be able to deal with the fact that someone knows your strats, because I guarantee now, Rambo Ray watches every team he's about to play. He spends the week watching all their VOD. He records all the times they scrim against each other, and he knows you inside and out. If you think that you're going to go from being in a challenger team to being in a CDL team and them not know your strategies inside out, it's bonkers. Like you're setting yourself up to do poorly. Like I think you need to have the confidence and dominance in yourself to be able to go out and push on. It's bonkers, and especially what was the lads from Team War did the full map, the full block. Like they did
Yeah,
the full
you
thing.
could just see the score.
Yeah, and that's a lack of confidence. That's a lack of confidence creeping into their game. They didn't do that from the rip because they were super confident that they were going to demolish everyone, and
Yeah.
they did so well at the start. But I don't think, like, if I'm Beans, I'm turning around to Bance and going, don't underestimate Steve Vortex, mate, because he'll learn our game in the next 4 or 5 weeks and he'll turn it back on us. And lo and behold, what happens? Steve Vortex learns their game, and now they're not the top dog. And the full map cover is largely a lack of confidence. Like, that's them trying to hide what they're doing so that they can get that advantage back and try and get that ground back, and it doesn't work. Like, for the last 3 or 4 years, everyone's tried it. The Spanish lads come out of blocks and won the first Challenger Cups in a row, and then Steve Vortex got the better of them, and it's just how it goes. Like, it's about confidence and having the confidence and you executing your strategies, getting to your positions a bit quicker than everyone else, and making sure you win your gunfights. I mean, there's not a lot to it, but yeah, it's mad that they're covering it up. It also, I guess, it's going to, outside of the fact that if they do start winning things again, that will push the CDL teams potentially to have a look. But
Yeah.
it's you're getting to the point in the season now where a lot of the CDL guys, especially the top 8 teams, won't want to make changes, especially if they feel confident that they can go on to get better towards champs. So it's going to be a weird one. This is a weird season.
Yeah. One positive for me is, like, at least we seem to be getting into games a lot this year, whereas last year we didn't. So, like, I get it with the mini map blocker. We just have it up all the time because I'm like, we're probably more likely to get in, but also we've had a few already where people are like, no, you're not coming in to stream the games. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that'll happen. We get it all the time. Clutch used to get it, and Clutch had a little bit more leverage because it felt more official, but we would still get it. And I would get into arguments with players all the time and over Twitter about it. But I mean, if you were to take it to the extreme, they're probably right. Like, it's about their income and their ability to make more money and their ability to do what they love doing at the highest level. So if Minimap Block helps them do that, then that's just the way it is. And if we live with it, we've got it ready and prepped. There's no way, if they ask us to block the full screen, we just won't cast the game. That's happened a few times. There's just no point. Who wants to watch a static of Pixie's face for, 5 games or whatever it is?
Audiobook.
Yeah, it's just it's bonkers. But yeah, it's just the way it is. We do roll with the punches, and we'll acquiesce to the players' requests because ultimately it's about supporting them. But I'll never not bitch about it.
yeah.
Basically.
It's got to be done.
Yeah, I love a good complaint. Major is Major's more CDL material than I am by a long way. He's a much more talented caster. He's a little bit more. He puts a little bit more work into what he's going to say. He has a lot more sayings and stuff. But yeah, he's just he will acquiesce to that as well and be like, yeah, we've just got to do it, just crack on and stuff. Whereas I will complain, I will argue with them on Twitter. Major will just be like, just leave it. What are you doing? I'll be like, no, we need to complain live. This is our audience. And,
I get it, mate. Honestly, like yesterday, I'm like our second game. Last week they were fine with us getting in and casting, and then yesterday they were like, "No, you're not coming in." And I'm like, "Okay, fuck it." Like straight away, I'm messaging their org like, "We're trying to do this for you lot, for your fans as well. Like, it's not just us."
yeah,
And they're like, "Oh, well, it's down to the players." Like, I get your frustration. I'm like,
you got
okay.
Elites is more money. Elites is like where you get noticed. Elites, and the deeper you finish in elites, let's be honest, like you think Clutch Rain largely in the 2Ks did whatever last year, but everyone remembers they did okay in the elites last year, and the memory of that sticks with people, and that they know that it'll stick with anyone in the CDL who's watching as well, especially those in. And the problem you've got now is because it's not about the org, because it's about the individual players. If you're Cobra and you think, oh, well, if these know what I'm going to be doing, we might get beat, and that's going to cost me a spot in the CDL where you know he deserves to be in it. Man, if I'm him, I'm going to be saying block it, or don't cast it. Like anything to make sure I get as deep as possible. Like once you're in grands, it doesn't matter. Winners, finals, losers, finals, and grands to an extent. Great, we could probably cast away as much as we want, but yeah, for them, it's largely about getting that place in and making sure that people understand how good they are. So I can understand to an extent sometimes try and play devil's advocate, but it is annoying as shit. Like it's like ultimately does it matter because you're gonna have to be on display anyway at some point. Like you've got to show what you're capable of. But
I mean,
yeah,
to double up on that as well, last year all of the games in the elite went to a YouTube playlist, right, unlisted. All of those like playlists got shared 100% because like I looked at the views of like our playlist and it's like, hang on, why has that been watched like 20 times? Like, it gets shared
yeah.
around anyway when it gets to the elite. So I'm like,
I think people underestimate the level of work that the coaches, assistant coaches, and analysts will do.
Huge.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, and they'll split. So a coach might well spend their entire time focusing on CDL games, but they'll have their assistant coach with one eye on challenges because they'll know they'll if they can't trade between teams because of the cost, they'll want to trade up, and they know that right now it's rich pickings. If you're a bottom four CDL team, like it's insane how much quality there is just sitting. Like if I was one of them players in one of the bottom four CDL teams that wasn't a rookie that had come through, my ass would be going, knowing what was underneath me, knowing the level of quality that was underneath me, knowing the Cobra could join at any point and make your job disappear and then make half the CDL disappear in the process. Like he's incredible talent, and that's not just him. I've always thought that given the opportunity, Super as an AR, if he can get his consistency back, could be a really good player. And that's before we start really taking apart the two outside the club train, I suppose, the other two big teams. And that's just the EU. You go to NA, and it's like go and look at the spreadsheet. It's disgusting. Like it's
Absurd.
scary how much talent there is. So I mean, if I'm one of them bottom four players, I mean, I am going to be I'm going to be injecting Illy's blood every time I play. Never mind the Adderall. I'm going straight to the source um, to get my concentration levels
I love
up.
it. I love it. I mean, there's one thing I want to touch on, which, Cop, you can probably talk through this in a bit more detail. And I know you were talking about it before I joined the call. But the behaviour of some of the players yesterday in the elite, or after the elite, Jesus Christ.
I mean, what goes through their brain? Like, honestly, you do all that hard work. I mean, let's just talk about it. It's a scandal, right? It's on the timeline anyway. Everyone's retweeting it. But the 26th seed in Europe managed to qualify through day one on the Saturday for the elite. They refuse to monicam. They refuse a PC check. And then they go to Twitter and they racially abuse Twiz. I mean, and then try and justify it. To me, if they don't get kicked out, then every team's just going to refuse to play them, like you said earlier, Pablo. I mean, they'll have to eventually. If FaceIT say they have to, they have to. But every team, they're not going to scrim them. They're not going to want to play them. They're going to want them out. Like, it's just going to be one massive headache. And if FaceIT don't get rid of them, then it's not a good look. And if they do get rid of them, then it's going to contradict what they said about like the game battles bans importing them because it's on a different platform. So I don't know what they're going to do. What do you
I
think?
think they have to. I think they need to set a precedent, and it's not just we know what the issues are in this community. It's you guys ran Apex, yeah?
Yeah.
And let's be perfectly honest, Apex players are just a different breed to Call of Duty players. Smarter, turn up on time, they just get on with the thing. I didn't, but my co-org owner back in the day ran Apex. After running Call of Duty events, I tried running tournaments for years, and you could. So sorry, as an aside, we'll get back to that. I could run a free-to-enter tournament in Call of Duty that had a payout at the end of it that was only a day long, and players would still forget to turn up. Or players would, I've said this before, no, it's an old story, but I had a player leave the grand final to go and play with his Warzone with his nan, and it was for money, it was like 250 quid. And you're not dealing with, like, the top level of Call of Duty may be sound, but the debt level of Call of Duty is not met.
Onliners.
Yeah, is not mentally in a great place compared to, say, other esports, like obviously like Apex, League of Legends, and Dota and things like that. So that's an aside. For a long time, the problem with Call of Duty is the punishments they've never fit the crime. Like, you
Yeah.
could literally murder someone and still get let back into an org. The biggest crime you can commit is hacking. That's it. Like, there's so many racists, there's so many players that are still being allowed to play at a decent level that have proven racists, proven misogynists, proven transphobes. All and they're quite happy to tweet about it, as we've seen, and they're still allowed to play because the only crime you can commit in Call of Duty right now is hacking, and that's it. Like, that's the only crime you can commit. FaceIT need to set a precedent. They need to kick that team out, and let them know that that can't be tolerated.
Yeah.
And as a side, we might inadvertently also kick out some potential fucking hackers, because let's be perfectly honest, we saw some teams yesterday go from being, it's not a movie. You don't go from being in nowhere in Call of Duty and then just turn up and beat four incredible players, proven incredible players that have played in the CDL and all the other bits. You don't beat them. There's, like, this isn't a movie. There isn't four unknown players that have come from the, I don't know, some backwater part of Europe that have suddenly, like, we're amazing. You need years of experience to be able to beat a team like that, and it's just everything about it's just horrible. It's just horrible, and they, face it, need to set a precedent. And the problem you've got is, even if teams might refuse to play them up to a point, as soon as that deadline hits, they'll play them, because they might get forfeited because they refuse to play a team that should have been disqualified. They're not going to take that chance, but they've got to take the chance of potentially playing someone who might be, walling or whatever they might be doing.
Is this not their job though? Is this not FaceIT's job? So like, obviously the elite is like, it's the next stage for me to go into the pro league, right? Is FaceIT's job not to be vetting this part of the scene for the pro teams, because they want to sign someone that's been a racist 2 years ago. They don't want to sign someone then find out all these
They
tweets.
don't give a shit, mate. They
No, but it should
don't
not be their
give a
job.
shit.
Like,
Yeah,
this should be a vetting process, and the
Yeah,
same with the banned players that our lads played. Like,
the problem
I
is,
don't know what they've done. They
if
shouldn't be
you think
playing.
about your hierarchy at your own org, like Noctem, like, if you had a player that was racist, and say Jack hadn't seen it, and you brought it to Jack, he kicks him out. And that hierarchy might not exist in FaceIT in that way. Like, they might have someone who sits above the admins, but he might not have the authority to change, because that's a fundamental change to the bracket and all the other problems that come with changing something officially. That hierarchy mightn't exist in that space, and it's not an excuse. I'm not saying it's an excuse, but if you've got a process problem, then it becomes very difficult to, even though those admins and those people working know that it's wrong that those players are still in, and they're with us on it. There mightn't be a process in place for them to do that in any real practical way. They also might not be dead in the same position as us. They're trying to make $1 out of an esport that largely is a loss-making thing for people in our community. So you've got a couple of things that you might need to address before you're able to address kicking this cunt out of the place.
I think it is, and that was what I was saying with, like, even the imported ban issues, the rule, like the veto process issue we had in Cup 1. I mean, the tens of issues we had in Cup 1. Like, you can only blame the admin so much, but then in any business, any handover, there's always someone that manages that. Like, do you blame that person where so much has been lost in transition to this? Like, have the FaceIT admins just been thrown in the deep end? Like, they
I
haven't
think
got
they
a
have.
clue.
I just think
Yeah.
no one listens. I think, again, this is largely the problem, is that no one listens. If you consider the problems, the challenges have faced through the years, it's largely been that the community has a massive voice that no one gives a shit about above that. And again, it comes down to the fact that Activision, their license stretches to the CDL. Challenges is largely voluntary community kind of based level. It's got no real official money being pumped into it. It did when they tried to do little bits with Zfuse or Esports Engine and with Clutch. You know, the way Clutch worked was, you know, it was voluntary, right the way through the season, and then Alan would go to Activision cap in hand and say, we've ran challenges for the whole season. Now, can you allocate some money so I can pay the observers and the casters the dollar they need? Activision would give them X amount of money, and then they would then go to the CDL teams themselves. So, you know, some CDL teams, NYSL, I think, chipped in, Atlanta chipped in, LAG chipped in at one. I mean, you'd have to speak to Alan, you'd be able to back that up. But CDL teams would then chip in. So it's still voluntary, and he's having to go cap in hand at the end of the season to see if we can get money for people to pay out. It's bonkers. So it wouldn't surprise me if the facility, if they were just thrown in at the deep end. I mean, the admins, were they largely South American for the first time they ran the
think they
first
still are.
tournament? You know, so
Some were Australian, I think, as well. Like they just hosted the Australian
Yeah.
Cup, and then they were 12-hour shift. Then go do
yeah,
another 12-hour shift. Like
that's crazy, mate.
we're
That is
doing.
insane. And we know that you've got Rayless and that who know this community, know the game, know the rules inside and out, know best practices, and he's trying to train these guys how to do the job that they should have asked the community about how to do. How have they had the confidence to go into a platform and a game they've never done before and just think, we'll just copy and paste how we do it with Overwatch or something and see if that works? No, mate, you're about to enter probably the most toxic community on the planet. But at the same time, the most lovely community. But we will, we don't shy away from saying what we feel, and we will fucking ribbon the shit out of you if you get it wrong. But at the same time, they're just not listening. So many issues. But when it comes down to this particular issue, I don't think they can. The problem is the community needs to set a precedent if FaceIT doesn't, and I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the teams. It's not fair on the team that they potentially face to be the standard bearer for for the morality of our community. It needs to be the platform that runs this, and it's got to be FaceIT that deals with it. The problem you've got is has anyone submitted any of this to FaceIT?
Yeah.
Like,
So I'm in the chat or in the Discord for the Elite, right? And some of the stuff that's been on the timeline doesn't even show everything because the guy even DM'd Twiz after that to double down on what he was saying. And you're like, I mean, apart from being bang out of order, how are you that fucking stupid?
yeah, oh yeah. As I say, never underestimate. Like some of the Call of Duty players I've dealt with over the years. You just, you just like your heads in your hands. Like they I don't know where their mind is, where they're. It's difficult to explain the levels of stupidity that I've seen, and the levels of nastiness that have come with it as well. And you're just like, ah, why? Like, even if you're the most toxic dickhead in the world, you've seen examples of what's happened to people in the past. Just shut your fucking mouth
Yeah.
and play Call of Duty and keep your terrible opinions to yourself, or get some fucking help in the process. And it's the worst thing for me was, and this is what basically happened to Elysium, with Big Harry, was that they had players that were openly racist and he didn't deal with them. And now he was at times could be a really sound fella, Harry, and he put a lot of money into his org, and Elysium with a really good organization at this level, and they could have, had themselves a decent challenger side, and he would have backed them as well. Because he didn't deal with these dickheads in time in any kind of way at all, and he knew about what they'd been saying, they just crumbled. And that's what happens. That's how toxic it is, that the community just came at them and were like, no, you can't get away with this. You can't. He's being racist. He's being discriminatory to an entire religion of people that, one of the biggest parts of our community. We've got tons of Muslim players that play for us. We talk to them every day. They're brilliant lads. We go to lands with them. How the fuck is he saying that shit? Like, and if he's got I don't know what he's going to go to Germany. If he turns up at Germany for the COD agent LAN, like, fucking I'll eat my hat. Like he's of a level where his ambition should be to play there. You know, he's played at reasonably high level in the past. Like, is he going to have the balls to turn up to COD agents where Clutch are likely to go? Do you know what I mean?
He's just a
So many.
bellend. He's a bellend.
No,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
COD as well. Like, I think we have to start holding everyone and ourselves accountable, whether it's like org owners, these tournament hosts, FaceIT. Like, if you know someone's doing something wrong, stand up and ban them. Stop not being the one that won't take the first step and keep
Yeah,
letting
but if
people get
FaceIT
away with
doesn't
it.
do it, mate, how does it work
And
after that?
let COD agent do it. Let COD agent do it. Like,
Yeah.
let someone do it. Let someone
Yeah,
say
get
this
him
isn't
out.
acceptable.
But
Let
they
Clutch
have to
Rain
be.
say they won't go to the LAN. If they're there, I'm not
It's
attending.
not going to happen, though, is it? Because
But
like that's
someone
like.
has to take the step,
But
though.
the problem is that's a penalising Clutch Rain. Then they have to penalise themselves in
Which I
order
get.
to make a
And
stand, which isn't
Activision,
fair at all to Clutch Rain. Like that's not. It's not on them to be the morality compass for the community. It's on them to try and be an org that wants to win and make money. The best thing
100.
they could do is go and win the fucking event, really. But I think you're right. I think COD agents, I think if they want to turn up and play, COD agents should be like, they need to be restricted from doing what they're doing officially. Like the community obviously can stand up against them and say you're fucking wrong in what you've said and support Samir completely. But it's not on Clutch, I don't think,
No, but I think that there has to be someone. I mean,
and it has to be an official. It's got to be.
there has
If
to be
they go to
someone that
play COD
takes the
agent,
first
COD
step.
agents
Yeah.
has to fuck them off, or really it needs to be FaceIT. Ultimately, it needs to start with FaceIT because it was a FaceIT
100%.
competition. I just
100%.
is that going to happen? Hopefully, it will.
I mean,
Hopefully, it'll happen.
they
It's the
have
same
said that
with everything.
they're gonna get back to us today about what they're gonna do. So, I mean, hopefully they just go, yeah, see you later. You shouldn't be involved. You can't say shit like that. Get the fuck out. See you later.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
Pablo,
yeah.
that's what you said earlier, Pablo, though, about that you get away with crime in this scene. Like, people need to start taking the
We tried.
responsibility.
Wait, I'm the biggest dickhead in the world, mate. We tried to address the real high level of toxicity that can happen in this scene. You don't see it loads, and this is the rarity in this is from a top level player, former top level player. That's the rarity of this particular thing, and I think this is a good one to highlight. Largely it usually comes from the Detry scene where it's less regulated,
Yeah.
and you've got especially in community based leagues and things like that where you've got sub 18-year-old players who, they're still largely teenagers, and they're still, whatever issues that come from being a teenager. But it's a weird one. I've kind of lost my train of thought a little bit on that one. But yeah, it's a tricky one in terms of the community dealing with it, because we tried ages ago and it was laughed. It was laughed out of the park. The ACU. Does anyone remember the ACU? This is when the ACCL was still going. So myself, Prezi, Heffy, a few other people tried to put something in place that would make it easier for people to be able to highlight and complain about things that had happened to them. So initially it came because the amount of female players that we had that were getting shit online or getting shit in the DMs, and just making a way so that we could highlight dickheads and say, look, don't play with this player. This is what they've been doing. And to an extent, the community does deal with it quite well. If you considered how many people have come out in support of Samir, the problem is you need that official thing. You need FaceIT to fuck them off.
Yeah.
The community does okay, largely dealing with dickheads like these. They remember the racists. They remember the people who said shit. I'll be honest with you, quite a lot of us clip and store all this stuff so that, we had an issue with a caster back in the day who was like, he would cast drunk. He would cast like pissed all the time. He'd be casting over games where for finals and stuff and be singing like pissed as a fart. But then we thought it's disrespectful and it's fucking a bit naughty, because a lot of the Detries really enjoyed having a good cast. It felt like they were playing in the CDL and stuff. But then we found that he had an alt Twitter account where he just the vilest shit you've ever read in your life, like pure fucking awful shit, like racist, pure misogynistic bullshit. And so he ended up getting banned from a few places, but he would do alts and pop up. He ended up in Clutch. Like, and I had to message
What?
Alan and be like, dude, this guy looks like a normal, sensible person, but this is what he's like. And then Major did the same, and he ended up getting turfed out of that. So the community does deal with this kind of stuff reasonably well sometimes, but this is the first time I think we've had this kind of an elite, after an elite.
Yeah.
What it's rarefied air in that sense. But yeah, I think the boys in FaceIT need to set a precedent.
Agreed. And it's
I
on
think
there.
that's the biggest issue. Yeah, like it's the worry that they're not going to from previous dealings. That's like a bit
I mean,
panic stations.
I think some of the issues they've had around hackers and stuff is is a process problem for them. I think that whatever issue they're not learning, it's a process issue. This is a straight up terms and conditions. This is a straight up. I'm almost certain that if you sign up to an account with FaceIt, it must say in the terms and conditions you have to behave in a certain way.
Yeah,
Says it in the
100%.
Discord.
Yeah, so there you go. So that's got to be a straight breach anyway. So, even if they don't, you just highlight their terms and conditions back at them and say the kids broke the terms and conditions from one of your games. It doesn't matter if it's gone on Twitter, it's been about the elite that you've just held and all the shit around it. So, yeah, get rid. Needs to go. Gone.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Because, yeah, hopefully, yeah. It's the case, isn't it? Doing a podcast that you get so negative because we have this awful thing with the CDL. We've got Optic and Scump and Hex taking the CDL to court because we know financially how fucked they are. Challenges is probably in the worst position it's been for a while in terms of broadcast. And now, just to add that the cherry to the cake, we've got players highlighting just how fucking idiotic and horrible they are. Yeah, it's a golden era of Call of Duty at the minute. But yeah, there's so many positives to take. You know what I mean? If they do deal with Nvidia and fuck them off, then hats off to them. But the community have come out and said we're in support of Samir. Nvidia can go and fucking suck a fat one. That is true. Though the community have come out and said that.
It's just a good way to word it, Pablo.
And aside from that, we managed to get the community together to cast over as much as we could last night. It was interesting. I was a bit disappointed. Easy Mac was saying, "Is anyone going to be doing any of the support for broadcast?" And I'd messaged them and said, "Listen, come into our Discord. We'll be able to get you all the stats from nearly all the games, if not all the games that are being played. And the ones that we aren't able to, we can just message and just say, if you've streamed it, can you sort the stats out?" And he was just like, "No, if it's not being cast and clutching over all 6 games, I'm not going to do it." And I was like, that's a little sad. I know he's a world champ statistician for FaZe, but I was like, come on, man. Get yourself in, get the stats. This is what it's about. This is your FA Cup 4th round, 3rd round kind of dealings. This is community stuff coming to the fore. I was a little disappointed in that, but I mean, it's his bag to do that. But we gathered together last night. We got some shit broadcast at the last minute. I didn't even know it was on. This is what pisses me off. Is FaceIt were like so under advertised. This the Kels messaged me to say, "Are you covering the weekend?" And I messaged Major going, what's happened at the weekend? He's like, "I have no idea." And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And it's elite quals. I was like, last season was like we were gearing up to do elite quals. We were so excited. We knew that we weren't going to cast the elite playoffs because they are always had Infinity and Proper and Alan doing that. But like this season is so broken. It's so broke. But the goals you've got to take away from it is that we get it right when we need to get it right. We as a community, when you guys step up and when Omid steps up and rotation. Ant has done so much in terms of tournaments and stuff this season. They've got a cheat calling them pup cups because without them you get no good practice.
That annoys me.
so
That does when you talk to them. Fun cups, they call them and all.
The one we put on with ESHUB last week. Was it last week? The week before?
The week before.
Couple, yeah.
Yeah.
So, they added me to the scrim chat, so they could ask whatever questions they wanted to ask. There was people in there saying they couldn't be asked to play in the tournament. They want to go and scrim instead. And you know what? We're working with ESHUB. They've put up $1,000. They didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And like,
These guys are great as well.
yeah, we've spoken with them quite a lot. I know Copy's partnered with them as well.
Yeah.
But like, uh, fair enough if you want to go and scrim, but then don't fucking complain about not having anything to play ever.
Yeah.
Like, we put that on with 2 days' notice because the French tournament got put down. Like, they were like, oh, we're not doing it anymore, and we're like, fuck it, let's see what we can do. And like, Poppy reached out to ESHUB, and they're like, yeah, 100%. Actually, instead of just matching your 250 quid, why don't we put up $1,000? Out of nowhere, that they've done that. Like, they're still a small company. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was a 1-man or 2-man band when me and Chafe were doing some casting for them last year or the year before. They were, just trying to get themselves organised and set up to be official, and they've always done things really well, and they've been smart about how they do it. When teams say, "Oh, I'd rather scrim, I don't want to play in a cup," just fuck them off.
yeah,
As far as I'm concerned. So, like, the big problem, it's not a problem, right? We had this conversation with Heffy, was that there's a few teams that have obviously the higher level teams are looking to go to COD agent because it's a lot more money. It's like nearly double what's on offer at Middlesbrough. And I said, you don't need to worry about it. Let them go,
mm.
because you're still going to have all your team passes are going to sell. You're still going to have 32 teams, but it's going to be at the level that we're all used to doing from back in the day. And it's going to give 4 players that would get two double rounded the chance to not get double rounded. They're going to have a much better experience, and the positive social media that's going to come from their experience and the experience of every other team that isn't getting double rounded the way they would do if the 2 or 3 of the biggest teams aren't there, is that they're going to have a much better experience. And then when it comes to the next LAN that you put on, then it's going to be a much bigger attraction than in some fucking backwoods in Germany trying to play, again, God knows who. This is going to be the best event for Call of Duty in the UK there's been in a long time. Like, in a long time, in a venue that is absolutely perfect for Call of Duty players. There's tons of other shit to do. The setup is immense. There's a bar that does booze and food. You've got Greg's round the corner. It's perfect in every
Yeah.
way.
And there's seats. There's seats for spectators, which
Yeah.
is like,
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but like, all the challenges opens that we've been to, you have to sit on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Does it, Pablo? Does it piss you off a little bit as well? I'm going to go on a tangent here, but like,
Yes.
there's some names in like challenges now that have been in this scene for a long time, right? And they haven't seen events like this for years. Now they've got nothing going on that weekend. There's no cup. There's nothing online. Does it not tick you off a little bit that they can maybe sacrifice one weekend or a couple of tweets to try and promote it? Because surely they see how big this is for the scene.
It's a weird one. You do get some people that are like really, really. If you message them and say, "Can you give us some support?" they will. Like, you've just got to prompt them.
Yeah.
COD players are lazy, mate. Like,
Oh, yeah.
they. If you think about, you take your top 12 to 16 players, they're in bed till 12. They get up, do the gym, have some food. They start scrimming at 4. They scrim through till 8. Then the S&D challenges or whatever they want to do, some rank play or whatever, until 4 in the morning, and then they repeat that cycle ad nauseum. It's just repeated. So getting them to their thought process isn't necessary. They'll see the Katana LAN and think, "Oh, that's a great. I'm going to go. That's a brilliant idea." Maybe not the top, 8 players, but everyone else below are going to go, "That's boss. That's a great idea," and buy a ticket, and then that's it. Like, it's down to the event to do the social market, and it is a frustration sometimes, especially for smaller clubs where that, like, the lifeblood of the scene is the smaller clubs.
Yeah.
And as much as they turn around to you guys and say, "Oh, I don't really fancy playing in £1,000 tournament," they'll go and play 250 quid Charles the same night, and you're just like, is there something wrong with you? You got, like, what the fuck? But yeah, it's frustrating as shit. But, like, the setup for this is grand. We've got myself, a Major, Infinity, and Enigma at
Yeah.
the event. You've got Trey hosting, and we're going to be, we've got someone as an assistant to Trey, just bringing in people for him to talk to. So the event, in terms of a broadcast, is going to be legit. We've got someone on the floor, maybe even 2 people on the floor with live streams going around the event, talking to people, being able to show like actual, because the problem we face is when you watch the challenges broadcast from a LAN in America, we get to see like the reactions via Twitter from
Yeah.
people, so it doesn't come from the live broadcast. We've got it so that all those, straight up into the face reactions, we can get that live. Like we can cut to that off the main broadcast, which no one else has ever done. You know what I mean? And this is just it's coming from a community broadcast, so it's like when we say we do it better, we do it better. But yeah, it's frustrating a little bit, copy. But it's down to us to advertise it and to push it. But yeah, it's one of them. And the other thing you've got to bear in mind is that like we all three of us know that if you're a top level Call of Duty player that's looking to get into the CDL, you've got to be 60% edgelord. Like there's no way around it. You've
Yeah.
got to be, haven't you? You know, it's part and parcel of the the, the vibe, isn't it? It's politics, and it's largely about being able to create mystique. So they live in their own little world where they got their own little chats and their own little community Discord or whatever, and that's what it's about. You create that mystique. Don't let other people in. Give everyone shit. Seem as cool as fuck. Get into the CDL.
So true.
But it has to be like that's the reason why we love watching it, because they are that fucking good.
Yeah.
Here's a
They
great
are.
example, right? You think about how good. So, right, I'm not going to give the game away, but I used to go into pubs with Lucy, and I could turn around. This is Lucy. Remember, someone who's is I think is he came 12th in the worlds in Black Ops 4. So it's like we're talking at an incredible level. Realistically, you could go into a pub with him and say drop a nuke, and he could drop a nuke like that, like literally just drop a nuke in a pub game on command. Like at any, obviously not at any point he could do it with little time remaining, but you could say to him drop a nuke, and he would go into a lobby and he could drop 150 kills, no problem, any lobby. And don't forget, he would be dragging the SBBM up as well, so he would be dragging me into lobbies where I obviously get decimated, and he would be doing double anyone else, and that's Looty. So can only imagine how good someone like Beans or someone like Bance is compared to a pub player like that. There's a reason why we broadcast and we go to town on these lads, because they reaction times a different level, their understanding of the game is a different level, the way they play the game like chess. I've seen it so many times. They're not concentrating on the person they're killing because they've killed them in their mind. They're concentrating on the person coming around the corner and then potentially the third person coming in, and which is why they can go and get 2 and 3 pieces against people who are only fucking 3 teams below them. So it's a weird place to be in, but you've got to bear in mind that it's the they're like footy players. Do you know what I mean? There has to be a certain level of mystique around them, and they create that. And I don't know, it's just the way it is. It's a
I'm
weird
gonna,
one.
I'm gonna, gonna ask you a question. Who's gonna win the Katana LAN?
That's a tricky one. That actually, I would hope.
It's the right answer, Pablo.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like, got so many good players. I'm kind of want. I know it sounds mad. I want Dashy and the boys to do well. I just think they're the kind of 4 players that are at that weird place. I had this conversation with Major last night after we'd finished the broadcast, because we were really surprised about what happened to Dashy's team. They got beat by Nako and Withen and that. And then when Nako and that played the next game, I can't remember, it was against the Clutch Boys, they actually looked really good. And I was like, this is the kind of thing I love, where you get surprised by players you haven't got the opportunity to cast over a lot. But I was really surprised at what had happened to Dashi in that. And you think about it, someone like Felix, who's a really good player, has had the opportunity to get coached by some decent. He's played with Luti, he's
Yeah.
played with Aroma, he's been around a few teams, even with Dizzy. Dizzy is such a good in-game leader, he's such a bright lad. He does, and I've listened to him in TeamSpeak, and he imparts information really, really well. So you get a player like that, Felix, who's had the opportunity to kind of round his game off. These 4 lads at Katana really haven't had that opportunity, and they're trying to do it like off the back of nothing, almost just their pure talent. And sometimes I think that's shining through because they're getting beat by players with a bit more experience. But I'd like to see them do really well. just so that they can push on. I know Dashy's good at LAN. We saw what he could do at Sheffield when they got the chance to play. So it'd be nice to see them boys do well. Would like to see them do well because they haven't got that kind of super experienced players around them. They're learning as they go themselves. He wanted me to say Noctem.
I did, yeah. I was waiting for it. But,
listen, I don't actually care. Ultimately, I don't really have a favourite as such. It's all good because it's all Challenger boys and it's all Detries getting into the same place and playing a bit of COD. Ultimately, that's all that matters. You know, it's different if you say, who do you want to win champs? It's always going to be an EU team. I think I always want an EU team to go as far as possible.
Yeah.
And basically, as the EU teams get picked off, I go to the next available EU team. And then when they've all gone, it's just the most likable NA team. CDL, I don't give a shit about. I don't care who wins. Last year was a joke. I don't think Toronto Ultra with the kind of with that poor of quality that they should have got 4-0'd or whatever it was. They didn't deserve that. It was so, and it was reflected in Challenge's result as well. That game was so uncompetitive that I think a lot of the results were just skewed by how shit the game was. And that's just how it is, that sometimes you get that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I just want to be able to be there and cast over it. It'll be so much fun. Properly looking forward to it. Like I was in bands for years. I love being on stage. I love being on stage. I can't wait. There might be singing and everything, a bit of dancing. Who knows? Can't wait.
I love it. I can't wait to see it in person, mate.
Can't wait. I'm properly excited, like a big kid. Honestly, my wife literally just looks and she's like, "What is going on?" she's like our friends that are obviously the same age as us are like, you know, they have dinner parties and they talk about business and stuff, and I'm like, have you seen what Steve Vortex has just done? Fuck them dinner parties, let's get the COD on.
Oh, I love it. And look, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. I don't want to keep you.
Sorry.
No, I love it, mate. I can literally sit here all day, but Mrs. has given me a look. A few little quick fire questions from me. What has been your favourite COD game to play?
Ooh, Black Ops 3, maybe Black Ops 4. Black Ops 3 though, I'm a jetpacker. I love Black Ops 3. I loved how difficult it was. The thing about Black Ops 3 was that if you couldn't shoot straight, you were completely screwed in that game. Like if you couldn't shoot straight, and there was no issues with like because of the jetpack, latency and other problems kind of went out the window a little bit, because you could jump out the way of a shot, spin and kill someone, and the skill gap was miles better. I probably my most competent two CODs was Advanced Warfare and Black Ops 3. I love them. Bring back jetpacks.
I'm anti-jetpack personally. I like the
There's
skill
games
gap.
out there for you, mate. Armor's there, Battlefield's there if you want to play non-jetpack games. You know,
I've got the counter to it already.
yeah, they're there. There's loads Squad. Go and play Squad if you want to play a boots on the ground game. But Call of Duty was moving its way into. It should have stayed in jetpacks. It should have adopted the Titanfall movement as well, and then it would be a completely. I think it would be a game competitively in the same breath as Halo and League of Legends and those kind of games. It would be at that level, and I think going to boots on the ground a couple of things. The franchise boots on the ground, weird 5v5 year for whatever reason, even though the game was decent.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was so odd. But those little things, like those little decisions along the way, have got us to where we are now. I think if we'd have kept jetpacks, kept the skill gap high, not franchised, and you know, we'd be in a different place. But yeah, Black Ops 3, Advanced Warfare for competition by a mile was the best year I think I've seen for competitive Call of Duty. It was the most fun, formal, absolutely frying kids. It was the most fun to watch Call of Duty. I think Black Ops 3 for me was the most fun for me to play.
I love that. And then what about favourite game to cast?
Ooh.
Cold War was pretty good, not gonna lie. I
love
didn't
that
enjoy
game.
it to play, but to cast Cold War, man, that middle square inside square in Moscow where everyone would just come into, and it would just be absolute chaos, throwing trophies down round that plinth in the middle. I mean, what an incredible game that was to cast over. Just so much fun. It was so competitive. The communities were super vibrant. Like the communities in Cold War were just on another level. Like even as a cast, I could get into eight any time of the day. Like any time of the day, I could get into an eights game. I get into ranked because I'm in um, the Katana Discord. Like I struggle to get into eights. I don't think I've played eights this year. Like it's so difficult. Like the communities are so split and all over the show, and it's so difficult. But like Cold War was just the most fun. It was. I didn't like the game to play that much, but like I loved casting it, and the community was just at its peak. I think
I love it.
definitely Cold War.
I mean, to be fair, that's probably been my favourite COD in years. Cold War.
Yeah.
I like this
Yeah.
one. To be fair, I know that might be contentious, but
I
yeah,
know.
Cold
I
War.
think this COD's good to play. I think it's fun. I think they've made a ton of effort to make to make it as fun to play and try and solve a lot of the problems. But it's just right now everything outside of the game is kind of the problem. I think this is an okay game. I disrespected Cold War an awful lot, and looking back on how good a game it was, is you realize you don't know what you've got till it's gone, a kind of vibe. But casting it was next level. Like it was so much fun. Like it was just amazing. Which was the one with Garrison in?
Yeah,
Was that
Cold War.
was that
That was
Cold
good.
War?
Yeah, took it out,
Yeah,
didn't it, after a while?
yeah.
I
I
love the
love.
time to kill on that game as well. It just
Yeah,
felt
yeah. TTK was probably spot on for that as well. Yeah. Um, that was the first time we really got to cast over the top level players like Eric Boom and Vikel and players like that. And when we started being able to make connections with challenger players that were moving on to the CDL and things like that. So it was a good time for us from a working perspective, but it was so fun. The game was fun. Like vents in Garrison. Where's the version of that in this game or the last game? Like there's not. It's stupid little things like that that make the cast so interesting. Like the bombs being planted and someone's hiding in vents. Like it was so exciting to cast. Like you could tell that story so well. But like, yeah, it's a weird one. But yeah, Cold War definitely the most fun to cast.
I love it. I love it. And last one for me, and I think I already know the answer to this, but player you're most happy to see in the league.
What? Who's still in challenges now, or who's gone? Who's this year?
Who's in the CDL this year? Your favourite?
So it's got to be the Boom. Like
Yeah.
we've been, like, it's a weird one. Like for us, we come through as casters with a couple of players. We come through initially with Eric Boom. He was the first. His team, the Maverick side with Vikel, Super, Sukri, and Eric Boom, was the first big team we got to cast over as a duo, and it was purely by accident. We weren't actually casting as a duo in that event. We actually had separate. So I cast with someone called SPWBK, and Major cast with another artist lad. I can't remember his name. And then they couldn't cast the last three games, so me and Major had to cast together, and then that was it. Never looked back after that. We just agreed to cast together after that. But we got to cast over X's Foxes, which was not X's Foxes. What were they called? X's something, and it had Brezzy in the side. So you think you have Brezzy, Depper, D3, Mac. I can't remember who the other French mate. Might have been Twiz. Might have been Twiz. Can't remember who it was. But they was Brezzy. I remember it was Brezzy. There was it might have been Clutch as well. It's so difficult to remember. But we cast over the Maverick side. And what was interesting about that was the pace. Like the pace was so different. Like we've been casting. So a lot of Detry teams played in that cup, and their pace was appalling. Like the one thing they didn't do well was, so they would be quick out the blocks, but they wouldn't get to a position. They wouldn't take up a heady. They wouldn't get themselves organised quickly, and so they just got destroyed. And then once they lost that rhythm, it was just you would get like stupid score lines like 250, 10 and half. But then when we got to the final, we got like Mavericks against the French team, and all the players were all of the same caliber. It was like the pace of the game, like Tom Major, who does play by play, it was like a horse racing commentary for him. It was so he's basically trying to. So before we'd really sat down with the likes of Alan and Brody to discuss like the better ways to be able to cast at a decent pace, so that you're not like, you know, like, and you're not casting every single gunfight. Before that, like, we would play by play everything that happened on the map, and it would just become a massive headache. So yeah, that the Boom being in is like massive. It's just amazing. I just hope he doesn't get overawed by it. Hopefully he doesn't. He's just able to stay, and hopefully they keep that team as a solid four and just go on. Right now, I think Vital's the issue for them. I think he's had a couple of inconsistent games, but Eric Boom is. I think he learns quickly, and he's a very solid player. He's ironed out, so he's done what Twiz is doing now. Eric Boom ironed out a lot of his inconsistencies, which is what a Slayer needs to do. You've got to like get rid of the stupid moves. As much as like people think a Slayer just goes around the map at willy-nilly, they have to do certain things at certain times correctly as part of the team. Twiz has started to do that under Brezzy. Now Brezzy's gone. For us, the big one would be able to get Felix in there. I don't know how far away he's not there yet. He's still got some inconsistencies, and the fact that he's largely milling around the top teams a little bit is something that I think he needs to just step up his attention to detail in the game. He makes some crazy plays, but at times he can take over the game the way Cobra does. But Cobra's probably next up anyway, I would suggest, outside of the obvious ones from like Team War and stuff. Who the problem other players face is because they've already been in the CDL. It's an easier pickup, so they don't come in with the problems of settling in and things like that. You pick up a player like Cobra who's not been in the CDL, you have to acclimatise him, get him a place, get him settled, kind of get his voice heard within the team and all the other shit. You pick up Bance, it's just straight in, isn't it? You've got yourself a player with tons of experience. So yeah, for me, it was great. Booms in there. It's great. Gwyn's in there. We were watching Gwyn last year, incredible player. So it's sound to see him in there. Love to see Cobra. Love to see F dot at some point pick it up. And for me, it's always been about Super as well. I think if he could become a more consistent AR, really needs to step up his game though, because being a great AR in the EU is not the same as being a great AR in the NA. Like, they are blessed over there. So yeah, I don't think he realizes the ceiling that's above him in terms of quality.
I love it, mate. I love it. I think I'll chat out like Niall, Cruz, Resi, and Detain as well. You know,
actually, got to give Xiao Cruz a shout as well. Xiao Cruz has had, sorry, I'm not ignoring the Noctem boys, but I'll be honest with you. Me and Major didn't know loads about Resi and Detain coming into this season. Like, we just hadn't cast over them a lot. We hadn't seen a lot of their games, and outside of just going on to COD Wiki to find out about them, it's not the same. And they've been incredible at times. They can take over games. Detain can be an absolute problem on the map. João Cruz for us last year was incredible. He had a great year last year, and for us this year, I was like, he was so infuriating. Like, you knew he could do better, and then he's absolutely looks like he's picked the form back up. Like this week alone, he's dominated again, which is what you want to see from João Cruz. It's difficult for him again. He's in a lump of other players that perform really well as well, so it's tricky for him. And he's Portugal based, isn't he?
Yeah.
Which is, he's got it hard, man. He's got it. Just that alone makes what he does that bit more special. But yeah, I mean, Xiao's someone we've constantly looked to support as well. It's just always been a tricky one for him. But yeah, you've got a solid team there, and again, Resi and Detain can dominate a game. It's just whether you can get Xiao to be as consistent as he was last year, I think, is the big key there, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And that's one of the reasons that we made the change with bringing Niall in for Wardy, right? Like, Niall's a more structured player. He's going to be able to like enable the rest of the players to do what they can do. Because I know like Josh has been with us since the start, right? Since Noctem last year when we first came into the scene, and like I think he's got the potential to be like up there, top 2, top 3 ARs in the EU, and like. When Wardy was in, because Wardy's a more aggressive player, you end up with Resi filling in the gaps, which is he's good at, but he's not as good as he is in that.
Yeah, I don't think it's his nature to do that either.
Exactly. Whereas now you've got Niall, who's going to do the fundamental work. He don't care if he drops a 0.7, like you were saying about Vortex, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you see yesterday, Niall like absolutely frying as well, and
Niall comes with all that S&D as well. Comes with a good S&D background as well, which is like I think there's so many great respawn players. I think people overlook the fact that you can win a series off the back of S&D as long as you can stay contended within. You know, if you get blown out in that map one, if you can dominate S&D and use the strategic element of control to get into that 2-1, knowing that you're potentially going to lose your hard point and get in, you know, that's the level of thinking you need. Get to that game 5 and use those players. I think likes a Nile can really go a long way to solidifying that. And Wardy for me. Me and Major have spoke about it. He was surreally inconsistent for a player that played over in NA for as long as he had, and it was weirdly inconsistent. Like it was just, it didn't feel like it. It felt like it almost felt like his heart had dropped out of it when you were watching him play, and I can understand that's probably not the case, and I understand he was probably frustrated in his own performances, but yeah, sometimes I think there's a swathe of players that get overlooked because they're not like super slayers. They don't put up huge KDs, but you always find them in winning sides. And Niall's definitely one of them. You know, you remember kind of like Rafi Grad, Niall, Liam. That side was incredible, and but definitely S&T problems. And you look at someone like Henry who's gone to Clutch Train, and we've said Henry's a great fundamental player. He's like little bit like methods in a way, in the sense that he'll drop a 1 KD, 1.0 something KD. He'll never let you down in that sense, but his understanding of the game, his objective play is peerless, and that's what you sometimes need, is a player that isn't going to drop 40 in the map, but is going to make sure that you get 250 on the timer, and that's what you sometimes just need, that player that's not flashy. You know, he's the Jordan Henderson of fucking of the game. You know, everyone questions why he's in the team, but don't question at the end of the season when you've got a trophy in your hand.
Yeah.
I'm telling Niall that Pablo's compared you to Jordan Henderson. To see what he says.
I think Niall's a good one as well with Gel, because obviously like last year when Gel looked incredible, he was on the team, Niall. So it's like Gel's probably super comfortable. Obviously Jed and Rezi are like the duo, so you've got two duos that are very comfortable. Put them together, like hopefully it's a
What was
winning
the map?
formula.
I think that's what. Yeah, I think you're right on that, because we would cast him on the El Asilo consistently, and he is the player that needs that support. Like he needs to be allowed to be a little bit more wild, and use his pace and his you know his wildness to get 2 pieces and 3 pieces in control, or potentially get that first blood. And it is the fundamental player you need in support. If you haven't got that, if you've got too much of an aggressive other player, you're just gonna lose 2 players out the blocks every time. We saw it yesterday a little bit. What?
I think we saw that in Boston. So
Yeah.
well, this is from my personal one, like could be completely wrong, but Jed and Gel looked like they were doing a lot of the dirty work. And obviously they're the 2 sub players, the 2 players that take over a map. Like
You don't want Xiao doing dirty work.
yeah, and since we've come back, I feel like that's what we've seen. Them 2 are just explosive.
I saw yesterday. I think you saw a good example of like one of the things that Swizz was bad for last year was he's a very aggressive player. I think Brezzy managed to tame him a little bit and say, listen, stay calm, stay calm, stay calm. Now go get your timing right, get you make sure you get your first kill if it's an S&D or whatever, because that's going to be your weak spot. And yesterday we saw that with Clutch Rain a little bit, and with the team they were playing, which was Nako and that, it was just so aggressive. They got to a 6-5, and you're just asking the question, it probably shouldn't be 6-5 between these 2 teams. It should be a totally different scoreline. So you can understand that you need a player in there that's just able to just go take a step back, don't push too hard just yet, keep the dog in the trap, and then let them go when it's time. And you definitely don't want Xiao doing any kind of like any thinking other than slaying, really, anything other than just trying to get those picks, using his game brain to just be in awkward places. It's nice to see, and I think you saw the rewards of that yesterday when he absolutely dominated some maps. So hats off for the big brain move as well. It's a difficult one. Wardy, they'll find a place somewhere. He's an incredible player, and he will find a place somewhere.
He was personally, he was maybe the most explosive player I've ever had the pleasure of watching. When he is in flow state, he is incredible.
Yeah.
But I guess it's getting the right dynamic around him, right?
Yeah. it's about rhythm. And I think he needs a
Yeah.
team that gives him the rhythm that he needs to get into place as well. And yeah, he needs that support. He's got to find the right team. This is the problem. Again, we go back to the problem. What the CTL has done to challenges and to itself is
Yeah.
it's so much about the individual that what can happen is you can see a player like Wardy, you can drop a 40 bomb on a map and plug him into a CDL team that is completely wrong for him, and then make him look like he's not a great player, and then sub him and all the other issues. But then the team that he's left, who were doing really well, are completely fucked now. So you've managed to destroy one player and two teams in the process because of the setup of the overall league. So yeah, it's baffling at times.
Wow. But hopefully, I'm really positive about the future. I think there's so much like
Yes.
good to come, and I feel like there's going to be a lot more brands that want to get involved in Call of Duty in the next sort of 6 to 12 months.
That's the key, mate. The key is to open it up to good sponsorship from places like Monster, Red Bull, those kind of places that do give solid support to brands. Mate, I work with these through gaming and through music with places that are desperate to get involved with this community. I approached Bayer Dynamic first because I knew, speaking to them last year, that they were absolutely desperate to get their headsets into the hands of gamers. So you guys will know the DT range of Bayer headsets because loads of players pick them up for this kind of stuff. So streaming, for playing ranked play, for playing scrims when they're at home, because they can just get like a really good mic and then they can have these incredible headphones. But then they also do amazing headsets. So they've got like their MMX range. The MMX 300s are incredible. They've got the same cans as the higher range DTs and an incredible mic. But no one in the gaming world knows about them because they sold Astros, Turtle Beach, all these guys who don't produce great headsets. And if you want to know where I'm coming from, my boss is the expert in headsets and headphones in Europe. Like, if not even greater than that, massive companies come to him and he tells them how to sort their headphones out and headsets. So they give mainly it's for neutral response, for mixing, for mastering, for in studios. But he understands what's needed in games. He's worked with Odee, who do the most amazing headsets in the world, and they do all the headsets for Sony now. So all your headsets that come with the PlayStation are made by Odee. They're going to be incredible. But Bayer do an absolute range, and they're going to be a Katana, so you can try them out and people can actually see. But they were desperate to get involved, and Elgato the same. They want to get involved. There's all these huge brands that want to be involved with Call of Duty and haven't had the opportunity officially to do it. Mate, the sky's the limit, and Activision just keep putting a roof way too low.
Get them in touch with us, Pablo.
Mate, you can speak to them. Bayer are going to be at the LAN anyway, so you're more
Yeah.
than welcome to go and speak to Richard from Bayer, man. He is looking for opportunities to work with organisations and people desperate to do it. Elgato, not so much, because they make an absolute mint in the gaming market, but definitely Bayer. They're going to be a Katana, so go and speak to them. They're very receptive and very open. They're going to have a 2PC setup, doing a 1v1 tournament as well, so anyone who wants to get involved can do that. Yeah,
Hello.
and it's going to be prizes and stuff. We got it all going on, mate. All going on.
I love that. I love that. Get us there now. Get us there now.
Honestly.
Oh, I can't wait. But I think we should leave it there, gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on, Pablo. And honestly,
No, it's been an honour. Thank you.
that time has absolutely flown by. I mean,
This is
Yeah,
the
I
other
feel like
problem.
we'll do it again.
Me and Major literally we've been known to just come off a cast and then end up chatting about Call of Duty for like an hour or more and not realizing like I can go on about this subject so much. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on, boys, as well. And I am tempted when we finish the call. I've got to give you this idea. I'd love to do it. Actually, we need to do it because me and Major can't do it. We just don't have the time to do it, and he's got less time than me. So I think I could fit it in. I'm going to speak to you about it. It's a boss idea.
I can't wait. But there you go.
Yes.
Stay tuned because there's the Pablo and Major idea coming soon.